President Trump spending hours in the Situation Room with his national security team Friday as Israel and Iran launched additional missiles at one another. It's inevitable the U.S. will feel an economic impact from this conflict.
It's causing the cost of oil to skyrocket. Analysts say that U.S. gas prices are likely to climb higher, and that could start as soon as this week.
Gas stations across America could run completely dry in just days. We're not talking about expensive fuel anymore. We're talking about no fuel at all. Right now, as you're watching this video, Iranian lawmakers are seriously considering a move that could send shockwaves through every gas station from coast to coast. They're threatening to close the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow waterway that carries 20% of the world's oil supply. If that happens, we won't just see $5 gas, we won't just see $7 gas. We could see gas stations with bags over the pumps and no fuel signs everywhere you look. Remember the 1970s oil crisis? The long lines, the rationing, the panic buying. That's about to look like child's play compared to what's coming. The dominoes are already falling in the Middle East, and the final domino is going to land right at your local gas station. Within 48 hours, this situation could spiral completely out of control. Here's why you need to prepare now. This crisis didn't start at the pump. It started with missiles flying between Israel and Iran. Over the weekend, Israeli jets bombed Iranian nuclear facilities and energy infrastructure. Tehran is burning. Iranian fuel depots are on fire, sending black smoke into the night sky. But Iran isn't backing down. They're escalating in ways that will devastate the global economy. Iranian lawmakers are now seriously considering closing the Strait of Hormuz, the world's most critical oil choke point. This narrow passage, just 21 miles wide at its narrowest point, is where 1/5 of all global oil passes through every single day. Every day, millions of barrels of oil that should be heading to refineries worldwide could be completely cut off, and we mean cut off. The shipping lanes are just 2 miles wide in each direction. That's what stands between normal gas prices and complete economic chaos. Iranian officials have been preparing for this moment for decades. They have fast attack boats, anti-ship missiles, and naval mines positioned to turn the waterway into a hot zone. They don't even need to sink ships. They just need to make insurance companies refuse coverage. Once Lloyd's of London says no coverage, the oil stops flowing immediately. Here's where this gets catastrophic. Iraqi Foreign Minister Fuad Hussein just warned that if Iran closes that strait, oil prices could hit $300 per barrel. Not $100, not $200, $300. To put that in perspective, oil is around $75 right now. We're talking about a 400% price increase virtually overnight. But even if oil only doubles to $150, that's enough to trigger a complete economic collapse. At $300, we're looking at the end of the economy as we know it. When oil hit $147 per barrel in 2008, it helped trigger the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression. That was just double today's prices. We're now talking about potentially quadruple that level. The global oil market is already stretched thin. China's demand has surged as their economy recovers. European nations are rebuilding their strategic reserves. OPEC's spare capacity is at multi-year lows. Russian exports remain constrained by sanctions. There's virtually no buffer when the Strait of Hormuz closes. No spare capacity to replace that 20% of global oil supply. Iran is now threatening to withdraw from the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. They're going full speed ahead on nuclear weapons development. Israel's strikes on Iran's Natanz nuclear facility were extremely effective. They destroyed above-ground structures and damaged thousands of centrifuges spinning at 60% uranium enrichment. But Iran's Fordo facility, buried deep in mountains, is still operational. Israel couldn't touch it without massive U.S. bunker buster bombs. So now, Iran is cornered and more determined than ever to get nuclear weapons. Their first move? Choke off the world's oil supply. This creates a terrifying escalation spiral where the more Israel damages Iran's nuclear program, the more likely Iran becomes to close the strait. Israel has eliminated 14 Iranian nuclear scientists in recent attacks, including car bombings in Tehran. Each dead scientist makes Iran more likely to retaliate by closing the Strait of Hormuz. Israeli drones have hit Iranian refineries. The Kangan port facility is on fire after strikes on the South Pars gas field. The Shahran oil depot in Tehran is burning. Every facility that goes offline tightens global oil supply. When supply gets tight, prices explode. Now let me bring this back to your neighborhood gas station, because that's where this crisis is gonna hit you personally. The U.S. imports about 6 million barrels of oil per day. 6 million. Most refining capacity is concentrated along the Gulf Coast. Our just-in-time fuel delivery system means gas stations only have a 2 to 3 day supply on hand. U.S. refineries are running at 95% utilization. There's virtually no spare capacity. When oil prices spike, refineries can't produce more gasoline. The Colonial Pipeline carries 45% of the East Coast fuel supply through a single system. Our entire fuel distribution network operates on razor-thin margins and minimal inventory. When crude oil prices quadruple overnight, the economics of every link collapse simultaneously. Refineries can't afford crude oil. Truckers can't afford diesel. The entire system seizes up. Gas stations receive fuel by truck, about 8,000 gallons per delivery, enough for 12 to 18 hours. When oil prices spike to $200 to $300 per barrel, diesel becomes prohibitively expensive. Truckers park their rigs. Gas stations miss deliveries. Tanks run dry. The trucking industry operates on margins so thin that a doubling of diesel prices forces many companies into bankruptcy. Independent owner-operators simply can't afford to keep trucks running when diesel costs $10 to $15 per gallon. Here's what happens when oil hits $200 to $300 per barrel. Gas prices at the pump double or triple overnight. Then comes the panic. People start topping off their tanks every day, filling up gas cans, hoarding fuel. Gas stations that normally get deliveries every 2 to 3 days suddenly see their tanks empty in hours. Within days, you start seeing plastic bags over gas pumps and no fuel available notices everywhere. Panic buying, of course, makes everything worse. A gas station that might last 3 days runs dry in 6 hours when panic sets in. Social media amplifies the crisis. Videos of long lines go viral. People drive farther to find fuel, and that, of course, burns precious gas in the search for fuel. But it's not just about getting to work. When fuel becomes scarce and expensive, everything, and I mean everything, becomes expensive. Food prices skyrocket because trucks can't afford to deliver. Heating costs explode. The entire economy seizes up. We're talking about supply chains grinding to a halt, truckers parking their rigs because they can't afford diesel, airlines canceling flights, emergency services struggling to keep vehicles running, Amazon delivery stops, UPS and FedEx suspend service in many areas, grocery store shelves empty because delivery trucks can't make their routes economically. Fresh produce rots in fields because harvest crews can't afford to run equipment. When gasoline costs $15 to $20 per gallon, people stop making discretionary trips. Restaurants, retail shops, and service businesses see customer volumes drop by 50 to 80%. Hospitals face critical shortages as medical supply deliveries become irregular. Police departments implement fuel rationing for patrol cars. Fire departments limit responses to only the most critical emergencies. The electrical grid becomes unstable as power plants burning natural gas face skyrocketing fuel costs. Construction projects halt as contractors can't afford to run equipment. The housing market freezes as buyers can't afford to drive around looking at properties. Tourism collapses overnight as airlines ground flights rather than operate at massive losses. This isn't just an inconvenience. This is economic collapse triggered by empty gas tanks. Now, some of you might be thinking, oh, we've had oil crises before. We've survived high gas prices. But this time is different. Our economy is much more fragile than ever. Our supply chains are more stretched. Our strategic petroleum reserve has been partially depleted, and we've never faced the complete closure of the Strait of Hormuz while simultaneously dealing with a nuclear crisis in the Middle East. In the 1970s, America had more domestic oil production and untapped strategic reserves. Our economy was less dependent on just-in-time delivery. People lived closer to work. Today, Americans live paycheck to paycheck. We've built suburban sprawl requiring long commutes. Our food system depends on products shipped thousands of miles. Our strategic petroleum reserves are depleted to around 350 million barrels. When the strait closes, there is no buffer. Our infrastructure is also more vulnerable. Much of our refining equipment is decades old. Pipeline networks are aging. Storage capacity has decreased as companies optimized for just-in-time operations. When gas prices spiked to $15 to $20 per gallon, filling up a large vehicle tank could cost $400 to $500. Many credit cards have daily limits that would prevent such transactions. The missiles are flying right now as I record this for you. Iranian lawmakers could vote to close the Strait of Hormuz at any moment. Israeli jets are planning their next strikes on Iranian infrastructure. Every hour this conflict escalates, the odds of a complete oil supply disruption increase. We're past the point of diplomatic solutions now. Both sides are committed to escalation until one achieves total victory or both economies collapse. Iran knows that closing the Strait of Hormuz is their nuclear option. Not literally nuclear, but economically nuclear. It's the one move guaranteed to inflict maximum damage on the global economy. Fill up today, not tomorrow, today. Don't just fill your car, fill every approved container you have. This is not hoarding. This is basic survival preparation when you can see the crisis coming. The gas stations won't warn you when they're about to run dry. The government will not give you advance notice. The Strategic Petroleum Reserve can't replace 20% of global oil supply. The signs will go up overnight. No fuel available. This was predictable. You have had warning. Now we all pay the price at the pump, if there is still a pump with gas. Please share this video with friends and family, subscribe to Epic Economist, and remember you heard it here first. Thank you for watching.